the Let's Go Live button. So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet. Make sure that this is rocking and rolling here. I gotta turn off my device. It's playing some music there in the background. Hang on one second. All right, so let's make sure that we're alive and well. Looks like we're broadcasting over on YouTube. Make sure that's going, rocking and rolling. It is. So let's go ahead and get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. Throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We have judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice, and it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and me to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. That's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. And we're grateful that you are here and with us today because we've got a lot to get into. We're going to take a look at what was going on with the Joe Biden town hall yesterday. A lot of activity there. We've got a lot of clips that we're going to be spending some time working our way through because there are some issues with our current president, right? Not really doing a good job performance-wise, communicating his message to the American people, which is one of the most fundamental duties of the executive branch. You're sort of the figurehead, the central figure that's supposed to be out there communicating a message, rallying the country behind you, and we're going to gauge whether Joe Biden is doing that or not. So we've got several different clips. He was out there with CNN and Don Lemon over there, so we're going to go through that at some length. Then we're going to change gears. We're going to go through a court case, an opinion that came out from a federal district court that is putting an injunction, or let's say blocking. So it's an injunction that is stopping a law that was passed in West Virginia that would have banned transgender individuals from participating in certain sports. And so we're going to go through this law. It was passed into law, signed off by the governor out of West Virginia, and a federal judge just came out and blocked that. Said, nope, this doesn't pass constitutional muster. This is something that is not allowed. And so we're going to talk about that and actually read through the opinion. There's a judge, his name is Judge Goodwin, and we're going to talk all about that case. And then lastly, we've got to talk about this bad FBI agent. He is Richard Trask. He has been charged with assault for assaulting his wife after an evening out. You know, we'll just say it's an evening out. And they were out doing some things and came back, and allegedly he kind of smashed her head into the side of a night desk multiple times, causing her to bleed. He's now been charged with assault. And this guy, what's so special about this FBI agent is he was the chief signatory. He was the person who signed off on the criminal complaint and the arrest warrant and affidavit for the alleged Whitmer plotters. Remember that story that we talked about here. So this FBI agent, Richard Trask, is in some hot water. We're going to go through that story and discuss that and more. If you want to be a part of the show, the place to do that is either now on Locals, which is at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And that is where we have a live chat taking place. And we also have a form that you can use to submit questions. It looks like this. So if you're a supporter of the show over there, submit a question there. I'm going to do my very best to make sure that we get it. Also, we've got super chats now working, and I want to show you how this looks. Here was a super chat that came in yesterday that was from Curtis Bartle, and so they'll pop up on the screen now. I'm still playing around with the fonts and stuff, but it is functional. So if you want to ask a question that way, we will get to those as well. So we want to get into the news. Quick little show note before we do. You might notice this little thing that I've got on my thumb here. So if you're seeing this sort of flamboyant gesturing, you might notice this chunk of duct tape that I have on my thumb because I sliced the top of it off this morning at the gym. I can't believe I did this, but I have a gym bag, and in there I have a razor blade that I used to shave my face, and I was reaching into the gym bag and I pulled out, and the razor just caught the top edge of my thumb, and it literally took like a slice off of it, like a significant slice. I was bleeding all over the place this morning. It was not good, but I've got it all wrapped up and bundled up, so I'm not going to be spraying blood all over the place here today, but that's what that is. Looks cool, huh? Thumbs up. Yay. Slicing your finger off. So that's what's going on. All right. Enough of that. Let's get into to the show today. And I might be a little bit screwy. This is my switcher hand. This is how I switch cameras and the screen. So we're going to see what we do with this big fat thumb of mine. All right, so we're going to get into the news of the day. Let's get started. Joe Biden had a town hall yesterday with CNN's Don Lemon. And so probably going to be the last one, given how bad this thing was. We're going to go through several clips. I have 5 different clips that we'll go through. I tried to really consolidate these clips down so that we could do some analysis here. And I want to do some actual analysis, right? What is he talking about? It's very easy to go through here and watch this next clip like we're going to watch right now. And it's really difficult to decipher what our president is trying to say because he's just sort of bumbling around for about 40 seconds in this next clip. And that pattern sort of continued to show itself as the night progressed. And so as I've been saying here, one of the fundamental responsibilities of the presidency is to communicate your message. It's to rally your base. It's to be the effective advocate for moving policy forward one way or the other in this country. And so we have to ask ourselves, right? Of course, it's easy to sit here and make fun of Joe Biden, call him Dementia Joe, and kind of feel sorry for the guy, actually. But he's elected for a job, right? He's got a responsibility to this country. I appreciate the nice old man, Grandpa Joe thing, but you can be a grandpa at home, not in the White House. So we want to make sure that he's being held to the appropriate standards and ask ourselves the question: is the media holding him to that standard or to any standards for that regard? So let's take a look now at the first clip. This is Joe Biden out with Don Lemon yesterday on CNN. And this is really probably the worst of the clips, right? This is where he spends about 40 seconds just trying to sputter out a sentence, right? Doesn't know what he's talking about. And you're going to see at the end of the 40 seconds that Don Lemon over there finishes his thought for him because he's like, I got to stop this. Enough already, right? Come on, old man. We're on live TV. Sputter it out. Couldn't do it. So he says, you're talking about the FDA, right? And Joe Biden, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So not good, right? This is not good. Let's take a look at what is happening here. And then it just kind of, it's not as bad. This is the really bad one. So let's just get it out of the way. Then we'll see what he's trying to say here. So this is Joe Biden yesterday on CNN from the town hall. If you'll notice down here, take a look at the number of views here, 2.6 million views. And I clipped this earlier this morning. So this is probably just still, continuing to percolate all over Twitter. Let's see what we've got.
That's underway, just like the other question that's illogical. And I've heard you speak about it because I'm not being solicitous, but you're always straight up about what you're doing. And the question is whether or not we should be in a position where you why can't the experts say, we know that this virus is, in fact, it's going to be, or excuse me, we know why all the drugs approved are not temporarily approved, but permanently approved. Yeah. That's underway, too. I expect that to occur quickly.
Well, you mean for the FDA?
For the FDA. Yeah. That's underway.
All right. So, I can understand the perspective that that's just regular stuttering. Give the man a break. Okay. That wasn't stuttering. That was something where he was really struggling to put together a coherent thought. Brain was just not functioning. So, okay. I can understand that, right? We all have little brain flubs. I do it here regularly on the show. I start ranting off about something and I go, what the heck was I talking about? And I bring it right back to it. So we can all easily get into that, that mindset. Now, you would imagine that the most powerful person in the world, the person who should be the cream of the crop, right? The person who should never have these flubs in their minds should be the president. Now, we all know that we're only human, but here's Joe, again, not able to complete a thought, right? And we've seen this pattern. And the problem with this, folks, we are 6 months in. We got 3.5 more years of this. So if we've already seen a degradation this far over the last 6 months, and it has absolutely gotten worse, what do the next 3.5 years look like? And what does that mean for the country? I mean, do we really have President Kamala Harris? Do we really have sort of a this shadow presidency because Joe Biden can't get it together? And it's not stuttering because it continued on throughout the rest of the event. This was a repeated problem. He had a very difficult time communicating all night last night. We could play the whole thing and we could comment on the whole thing, but we're not going to do that. So in that first clip, nothing even to analyze there. He says something about being solicitous and making sure that these are going to go from experimental to non-experimental. Okay, all right, we got that, Joe. Let's listen to this next clip because we spent a lot of time here talking about inflation. Inflation, of course, I've been saying is the silent tax. This is something that, in my mind, is coming like a train down the pike, but a lot of people who are economists and people who are more studied in these issues apparently know more than I do. And it is still becoming an issue. And Joe Biden got asked about it last night. And so he had to come out here and he's going to give us an explanation. This is the president. He's going to tell us what we're going to do to solve inflation. And remember, when we talk about inflation, it's the idea that your money has less purchasing power. Why might that be? Could be a number of different reasons. It could be because the government is printing more dollars, which is devaluing your dollar, right? They're adding more money to the Federal Reserve balance sheet, which means that every new dollar that comes out of thin air, it diminishes the value of the dollar that you have in your pocket. So that could be one reason. It could be supply chain problems because people weren't working. So if there aren't people chopping down the trees and processing the wood, well, then that wood is going to get more expensive. It's just simple supply and demand. So it could be that as well. It could just be supply chain disruptions and have nothing to do with the printing of the money. But we really don't know yet. And so we're having different economists and different professionals come out and try to decipher that for us, frame it out a little bit. Joe Biden, we have an answer from him about what inflation means and how this works. And you're going to see he's very much the supply interruption mindset. He's saying he's somebody who says that this is all just temporary. It's because the workers weren't working and we're going to get them working again by printing all of that money. And then once we print all of that money to pay the workers, then they're going to go back to work. And because it's going to balance out the supply chain, then we're not going to have any supply and demand problems. So those prices are going to come back down. Well, the problem with that line of thinking, obviously, is all that's well and good, but what happens to all that extra money that you printed to pay the workers in the first place? That's called inflation. You were inflating the money supply because they were not working because the government shut them down. You had to pay them to go back to work, and the cycle continues on and on. So it doesn't make much sense to me. This is Joe Biden explaining it, though. Maybe my explanation was subpar. Maybe the president of the United States can explain it better, given the fact that he is the president of the United States. Here is Joe Biden talking about inflation. This is about 1 minute and 11 seconds. I think I clipped the full clip, so bear with me. We're going to be listening to Joe tonight. Here he is.
You seem pretty confident that inflation is temporary, but if you're pumping all of this money into the economy, couldn't that add to...
No, look, here's the deal. Moody's today, when a Wall Street firm, not some liberal think tank, said if we pass the other two things I'm trying to get done, we will, in fact, reduce inflation. Reduce inflation.
Okay.
Reduce inflation.
Okay.
Because
Three
they're going to
times.
be providing good opportunities and jobs for people who, in fact, are going to be reinvesting that money back in all the things we're talking about. Driving down prices, not raising prices.
What?
And so it is, I sincerely mean this. Prices are up now, and they're up for example, you're in a position where you're trying to build a house, try to find 2x4s and lumber. Well, guess what? People stopped working cutting lumber. They stopped doing it because the unemployment was so down. Now, all of a sudden, there's this need because people are coming back. And guess what? Instead of paying 10 cents, you're paying 20. You understand what I'm saying?
No, we don't.
It relates to what,
we don't.
in fact, is now needed because we're growing.
No, we have no idea what you're saying, Joe. That's the problem. We don't get it. So he's saying, again, it's very circular. We're seeing inflation because people aren't working. Well, why aren't people working? Because the government locked everything down. And so now we're having a problem getting people back into the labor markets because the government has had an eviction moratorium for a long time and then was also helping support people because they were imposing the lockdowns. You can't work, therefore we're going to help you with unemployment. And so now he's saying, okay, so that's kind of going to stop, I think, or he's saying all of this money is going to help to rehire the workers. So we're going to print a bunch of it. It's going to rehire a bunch of the workers. They're going to get back into the labor force, which is going to balance out the supply chain problems, right? Yes, there will be people there chopping down the trees and printing out the 2x4s. But what happens next? Okay, so the lumber prices come back down, but we still have an additional several $1 trillion that are added to the monetary supply. So now the supply chain hiccups have balanced themselves out, but we got boatloads of money just floating around. But he doesn't address that. He said, well, the thing, he's doing all that same Joe Biden thing again. And Don Lemon the entire night just lets him get away with it. I don't know what he said there. He didn't say anything that an economist could decipher into something that makes sense because he was just stringing together a bunch of statements, and he did it in a way that, he seemed pretty self-assured of himself. All right. So here is another clip. Now he's going to go through this, right? This is this class warfare stuff that we see a lot of. He says, well, no, this isn't this. That's the next clip. This is the clip which you have to ask yourself, did this really happen? So he's saying that he goes over to the G7. Remember, the G7 just happened. That was over in Europe when they were doing the goofy elbow bumps and, all of that stuff. And so Joe Biden came back, and he's going to tell us this story. He's going to tell us a story that might have worked in the 1960s or 70s when we all didn't see what happened over there, right? When we can't see every single thing that took place there. He's going to tell us this story about this conversation that he had with world leaders about, America being back. And you just have to ask yourself, man, is this... I appreciate rhetorical flourishes. I appreciate hyperbole, right? I use a lot of it here. We have a lot of fun here with language, no question about it. But is this really going on with our world leaders? Are they really talking like this? If so, my friends, it is way worse than I thought. If all of the world leaders are asking our presidents these types of questions, we're in bigger trouble than I thought. The world is doomed. Here is Joe Biden now telling us about his trip to the G7.
But folks, the rest of the world's wondering about us. Those of you who travel abroad, not a joke. Not a joke. You asked, when I went to this G7, all the major democracies, I walked in, and I know a lot of them because of my role in the past. And they walk in, and I said, America's back. And they go, I'm serious, heads of state. I give you my word as a Biden.
Listen.
I said, are you really back? I mean, how can we believe you, Joe. But will the country ever get it together?
Will the country ever get it together? So that's our ambassador across the globe. Yeah, he goes over to Europe and he's like, yeah, look, I know I'm coming from a dump in the United States, but I'm in charge now. We're going to get this thing back together. It's kind of insulting to us as Americans, and it's also pretty insulting to Europeans in general, right? We have some people here who watch the show from Europe, from Scotland and other places. Hello out there. And the idea that your world leaders are coming and sort of crawling over to Joe Biden and saying, Joe, like, it's been a mess. America's been a mess out there. We really need some guidance from you. We're so lost in the world without America's leadership. And only you, Joe Biden, can come in and reassure us, given the fact that you've been in government for the last 40 years. Like that, like he's the savior figurehead. And if that's really what these European people are saying, we have some people over here, little panda cubs from Norway. We've got RMFs from Europe. Is this how your leaders act? Do they go up to American presidents and just sort of grovel? Oh, we're glad you're back. This is a great thing. Welcome back to America. America's back. Now we can start acting like adults in the room again. Guessing that conversation didn't happen. Guessing this is Joe Biden's little rhetorical flourish. And this is not really good executive leadership, is it? Could I be wrong on that? Maybe I'm wrong on that. All right. Well, in the next clip, we're going to see what Joe Biden is doing as the whisperer in chief. Joe Biden yesterday was coming down on the billionaires again, right? We have Jeff Bezos flying up to outer space, same with Richard Branson and many of the others. And we always hear this from a lot of the Democrats. Pay your fair share, Bernie Sanders, the millionaires, the billionaires, and all of that stuff. And so now Joe Biden out is doing that same class warfare stuff. And he goes into this long, weird tirade in this clip. I'm not going to play the whole thing. It's about 30 seconds. But he goes into this long tirade about the middle class has never done better than the wealthy, than the rich, the upper class. And you just have to what is he even talking about? All right, that's a digression because I didn't include that. So I'm not going to rant about that. Let's see what he says here though about the middle class and billionaires and about taxes. This is Joe Biden, and he's doing the whisper thing. He's doing the pay your fair share. I'm Joe Biden. Pay your share. Strange behavior. Here he is.
Ever think of a time, those of you who are economists, who teach here economics, can you think of any time when the middle class did better, the wealthy didn't do really well? I'm not being facetious now. I'm being deadly earnest.
Okay, got it.
Can you think of any time that's occurred when the middle class does better? I'm tired of trickle down. I come from the corporate state of America.
What are you talking about?
And by the way, I think you should be able to go out and make $1 billion or $100 million if you have the capacity to do it. But ask one thing. Pay your fair share. Just pay your fair share.
All right, so real quick on that. Look at this crowd. Look at all those people there. So we're going to take a second angle look at this. But, man, look at that packed house over there at CNN. Look at those rows just filled end to end. All those people. A lot of enthusiasm there for Uncle Joe. So we'll take a look at that again. But what did Joe say there? Oh, yeah, pay your fair share. Pay your fair share, billionaires. And he was doing it in that, that trademark Joe, signature Joe whisper. So that's fine if he wants to communicate that way. I think the bigger problem that I have with this is his fundamental understanding of economics. So the idea here that we live in a capitalist country, and so we're naturally going to have hierarchies where people work themselves up the hierarchies, and the harder they work, the luckier they are, the bigger silver spoon they had in their mouths, the more they're able to achieve. Necessarily, they're going to typically earn more money, right? So they're going to work their way up the hierarchy until they get to the top. So Joe Biden is saying that somehow the middle class should be wealthier than than the rich people or something like that, which I don't know how that works because I've never gotten a job from a poor person. So in other words, like somebody wouldn't hire me if I was more successful than them, right? I would hire them because I would need their services. So the whole thing is just kind of topsy-turvy. It's backwards. And so Joe Biden is really thinking about this vision where we can have this huge burgeoning middle class that's doing better than I think the rich people are. I don't know. He's just sort of, I think, disconnected from the Pareto principle, 80-20, some of these natural distributions of productivity, of outcome, of ROI off of efforts and labor. And so I don't really know what he's talking about. I mean, if he's talking about one way to do that, one way to sort of increase the middle class at the expense of the rich is to strip the rich of everything and redistribute it to the middle class, right? It's redistribution. That's the only way that you can create that equation. Otherwise, people are going to get what they earn. And naturally speaking, some people are going to be more productive than other people. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's not such a good thing. Sometimes people want to prioritize family, right? And raising children and sort of living their lives that way. Other people want to prioritize building penis rocket ships and flying out to space. So it just depends on what you want to do. And that's what's so beautiful about this in America is that we have that hierarchy. Some people are going to rise to the top. Others don't necessarily have to take that journey. The other part of this that was problematic to me is the pay your fair share part. Now, it's problematic to me, not because I don't want the billionaires to pay their fair share. I think that they absolutely should. I think that what we have been seeing with them getting special rules with these loans, that they just pay the interest on the loan and they pay taxes on the interest payments, not on the total amount of the loan, to bypass the income tax requirements, that's problematic. You and I don't have that same benefit, and the government created these incentives. I think from a populist perspective, the government has to create the solution because they're the only ones with the power to do so. So I'm okay with that. But my preference would be, not to make Jeff Bezos pay what I pay. I don't want that. That doesn't help me at all. All it does is take Jeff Bezos's money and puts it in the coffers of the government, which is just going to burn it into nothing. It's useless. So I would prefer that I get to pay Jeff Bezos's rates. Okay. If Biden wants to say pay your fair share, I would love to pay our fair share here, which is what Jeff Bezos pays. Okay, and that's fair. The U.S. government has absolutely taken advantage of the tax base. We get taxed on literally everything everywhere we turn, and it's no longer fair anymore. So don't tell me it's a fair share. We're taxed on everything. Every time you swipe your credit card, you're getting taxed for something. Not to mention your water bill, sewage. Every time you hop on a plane, every time you go to a hotel, you're getting taxed. Sales tax on everything, income tax, gasoline tax, the list goes on and on. So it's not your fair share anymore, right? You have been overly burdening the American people for far too long. People are bailing out of the system. They're looking at new economic systems like cryptocurrencies, and they're exploiting the loopholes that you, Joe Biden, have been responsible for creating for the last 40 years. The billionaires, you had 40 years to help them pay their fair share. You never did it. So you're going to use that as a rallying cry right now? Okay, so we'll see if that works out for him. He's not serious. None of them are. They know that they are in the pockets of all the millionaires and the billionaires. This is just a talking point. So it's basically useless. We have another clip here from Joe Biden. Now, here he's talking about handguns. This is the last clip that I have of Joe today. And here he is. He's talking to a nice woman about handguns. And so some interesting statements came out of here talking about wanting to make sure that we're eliminating high capacity magazines is what he's talking about without talking about it. But he goes as low as 20 rounds per magazine. And then he starts talking about things like handguns and talking about 9mm and stuff that people use on a regular basis that may have a higher capacity magazine, right? Many handguns have higher capacity magazines than, let's say, 10 rounds. So if Joe Biden now is using this language saying that he might be working towards some efforts to reduce the availability of lawfully owned handguns, that might be problematic. So I want to show you this clip and take it for what it's worth. But he's talking about additional efforts by funding the ATF to go in and deal with the illegal guns. We've seen this story before. In the 1980s and 90s, Joe Biden did this same routine. Season 1 was back then. It was a terrible season. It was called the drug war. That's when Joe Biden came out and wanted to address all the drug violence. Made sure we had the 1986 bill, 1988 bill, 1984 bill, I believe, and then the 1994 bill. All of these bills were responses to drug violence. It's the same story. They just took the word drug out and they put gun in there because they're totalitarians. They want total control of the government. And if they control law enforcement, they're happy with it. If the other side controls law enforcement, they're not so happy with it. But they went from defund the police, BLM, all of that stuff to we are pro-police. We're going to be funding them with $350 billion of set-aside COVID money that nobody voted on, that it just got lumped in there, and it's now all going to be going back towards law enforcement. So if you're a Democrat out there, man, and you were looking at this administration like they were going to be a justice reform bunch, whew, that is a tough realization, I would imagine. Anyways, here's Joe Biden now talking about guns. Let's see what he has to say, and pay close attention to the crowd again, right? Looks pretty busy over there. We're going to check in on that in a minute.
Involved. Actually, crime is down. Gun violence and murder rates are up.
Okay.
Guns. I'm the only guy that ever got passed legislation when I was a senator to make sure we eliminated assault weapons. The idea you need a weapon that can have the ability to fire 20, 30, 40, 50, 120 shots from that weapon, whether it's a 9mm pistol or whether it's a rifle, is ridiculous. I'm continuing to push to eliminate the sale of those things, but I'm not likely to get that done in the near term. So here's what I've done.
Wow.
The people who, in fact, are using those weapons are acquiring them illegally. And so what happens is I've gotten ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. I have them increase their budget and increase their capacity, along with the Justice Department, to go after the gun shops that are not abiding by the law of doing background checks. For real, that's number one.
Yeah, for real. He did that a lot this entire time. He said, for real, I'm serious. I'm being serious. No, for real. Like, I'm not being facetious. This is the real deal. So he's going through, and if you notice, it was very, very subtle, but he said in there, I'm looking to stop the sale of those things, and he didn't categorize that as illegal or anything. He just said, as a general problem. So a lot of people are taking and latching onto that, saying, oh, so in addition to working on the illegal guns with ATF, you're also saying that you have a strong leaning towards stopping the sale of handguns, including 9mm, anything that basically is semi-automatic with additional multiple rounds in it, which is, of course, a cause for concern if you are a Second Amendment person. So Joe Biden was speaking to that young woman, and it was very, very busy, packed house. From the camera angles from #FakeNewsCNN, this is really what the crowd looked like. What the Biden CNN town hall looks like. This is from Jennifer Epstein. I think she's over with Bloomberg. She says this is what it looks like from the back of the auditorium, right? So some people are saying that, oh, no, Joe's not on the stage, right? It was a full house. No, it wasn't. Joe Biden's standing right there. There's Don Lemon right there. So it's the two gentlemen right there. And the auditorium is basically empty, right? It's like the first 3 or 4 rows that are there that are full. But if you watch this on the media, it sounded like a packed house, right? Rounds of applause. They only had the cameras showing the front of it. The room was empty because nobody cares about Joe Biden. It's about the same thing as what we saw during the election. This is actually a little bit bigger, but not by much, than what we saw during the pre-election campaign season when basically nobody showed up. So again, the whole thing is just feeling like AstroTurf. And if you think that was inaccurate, here's a closer look of that. Right there's Joe Biden. There is Don Lemon over there. We've got the media there, and I guess maybe this could be a COVID problem. Maybe this is a limited capacity because they've got concerns for COVID, right? Because they don't want to pack a bunch of people in there, and the president is VIP and security, and all this stuff is going on, and we got to protect the president, right? Because of COVID. So let's see if they were taking extra COVID precautions back there during the town hall. Oh no, look at that. No masks, sitting right close together. Oh, that one has a mask on. No mask, media sitting there. There is nobody there. It's dead empty. No masks, no COVID precautions, nothing. It's an empty room because we have an empty president. The whole thing is just as astroturfed as can't even really believe it. Trump would have had people circling the building in support of him. Obama would have had circles of people there supporting him. This room, they can't even fill it. And it's for a CNN town hall, a nationally televised CNN town hall. So I don't know if this is a common thing. I'm going to guess not. But you would imagine that the room would be a little bit more full given that our president is speaking. So totally empty. Nobody's even in there while the talk is going on. Ridiculous. What do you think about that? Let's take some questions. And we had a super chat come in. Let's get that one real quick. It says, Joe, just because you say it 3 times doesn't mean you don't know what you're talking about. Everything he said was absolutely wrong. Yeah, it's all terrible, all wrong. His economics are just quite shocking, really. All right, let's take a look at some questions coming in. We've got, first up, we have I'm Not Gassed. Oh, no, that's from yesterday. We were talking about pop and soda yesterday, so that we're going to skip over that one. Let's see what else is coming in. Okay, the Biden Town Hall. We have Cove Queen says, Cove Queen is here, says, the pressure / Joe Biden. What did anyone else expect? It's a good one. Yeah, that was that famous Joe Biden, signature Joe. Sharon Quidney is here, says, what do you think are the chances of Biden getting the 25th? In that case, we'd be stuck with Kamala, or else little old Fancy Nancy. Neither one is a very appetizing prospect. So that would be, I would say, very low possibility that would happen. If anything would happen, I think that he would resign maybe after the midterms, and Kamala would slot herself in there. I've been speculating. If I had to guess, I would say that he sticks through the midterms, and then once that's over, they start to transition him out because they're going to need to puff up Kamala for the 2024 campaigns. And we'll see what happens. Look, I hope Joe's healthy and well. Maybe he just had a bad night, but I don't think so. Kamala Harris is here, says, oh my gosh, Joe Biden is such a dementia-filled joke. I hope that some of the Hunter money can get some, oh my gosh. Okay, so we're going to gloss over that one there. We have Leafy Bug is in the house, says, Rob, love your work. Agree that with you that Biden is the man in the job. He wasn't forced into the role. But it's becoming clearer and clearer that he has a problem. There are people behind the scenes keeping everything together, propping him up, making him as presentable as possible to the public, pushing him on a position he doesn't have the capacity to manage. At what point do they have some kind of culpability for what increasingly looks like elder abuse? It's a good question. You know, elder abuse is an actual crime, right? It's an actual criminal charge that exists. And you also, in Arizona, we call it vulnerable adult abuse, which is typically elder abuse. So it's a very heinous offense, and typically it involves more than what we see with Joe Biden, I would guess. Now, behind the scenes, are they injecting him, with amphetamines? Get out there, Joe, and cramming down that medicine and sort of propping him up so they can shove him out in front of the cameras for a few hours a day? That might be elder abuse, which is probably exactly what's happening from the looks of it. We have Miss Lucky is here, says, methinks he only ran because Jill wanted to further her social ambitions. I think that's probably, there's some truth to that. I think that Joe Biden was sort of just a tabula rasa, right? A blank slate, somebody that the media and everybody could sort of just make him into what he is. Very safe, very consistent, been in government for 40 years. So everybody just says, oh, well, it's just, we're not gambling anything. It's tried and true versus Donald Trump. We have Aircraft Mech is here, says, I think this isn't going to end well. Haha, yeah, I agree with you. Probably his last town hall, I would say. Dr. Renal MD from New York is in the house, says, why are his handlers doing this town hall? His Democratic handlers know the general sentiment of late is that he has no idea what he's doing. There are empty cities. He has no plan. New York City is empty. San Francisco has no conventions booked and is a homeless wasteland. Well, I don't know. I think it's just part of the facade, right? Where it's like they're just stuccoing over, like that wall over there, right? There's the back of the wall is pretty ugly. I'm going to paper right over that. Doesn't change what's underneath the wall, just papers right over it. Joe Biden is trying to paper over what we can all see, and that's not going to work out well for him. Want to Know says, we get all our lumber from Canada. U.S. lumber shut us down, mostly liberals. That way it can just burn up, overgrown, great environmental move, some processed, but not much, says Tree Farms, mostly. Good to know. Thanks, Want to Know. We have, next up, Sharon Quidney's here, says, our inflation. Supply side money problems, my A. It's not just overamped printing presses. It's also people making more money from not working than what they would be making if they were working, thanks to government handouts. Yeah, it's it's free money. All right. We have Thunder7 says, Rob, I don't watch the fake news or the fake president. And I know big tech play with the numbers. The CNN don't even get 1 million viewers all day. But does anyone still believe this old fool won the election? By the way, keep your thumb up top. Keep your thumb top. Fauci can use it to splice with the bats and the aborted fetuses in his Frankenstein experiments. Your DNA could be the cure for the Delta. It might be right here, folks. The answer to the world's problems. Right here in the tip of this thumb. I'm guessing not, but you know, if I have to sacrifice this guy for the future of humanity, I'd be willing to do that. Thanks for the heads up, Thunder. We got Robute Day is here. Says, Robert, inflation is not the increase in the money supply. It's the increase in the price of consumer goods, which is why I say it's the when I use the definition of inflation, I say it's the decrease in buying power of your money, which I think covers both of those. So I understand your point. I think we're both on the right track. There are 4 factors in the inflation and supply and demand of goods. So it's supply and demand of goods, levels of employment, velocity of money, and the increase in the money supply. Increased money supply is only a subset of inflation. Yes. So thank you for that. Yes, there's a lot more that goes into it. Of course, but this is not an economics show, nor am I an economist. And so when I'm trying to sift through these issues, I'm trying to kind of boil them down into bite-sized chunks that we can play with. But I appreciate the clarity on that, right? You're absolutely right. There is a lot that goes into it, which is why these issues are so complicated and frustrating, right? Maybe Joe Biden's right. Maybe we come out, there's no inflation, the economy starts roaring, and all the printing didn't cause a problem at all. And if that's the case, well, then why don't we just keep printing money every year, right? If we can just keep people not working by just printing money and it's not a problem, it doesn't cause much inflation or it's just temporary, well, why don't we just print that every year? Why are we paying taxes if we can just print money and solve all of our financial problems? It's because we can't, because it's not sustainable. It is problematic, and we're going to start to see some serious consequences from it. What they're trying to do is put the covers over your eyeballs so you don't see it. And when it happens, they'll just say, oh, no, we had no idea this was coming. These are all, it's sort of framing themselves for the future. They're setting up the argument right now. It's called persuasion. They're framing it out so that when there is an economic problem, they can say, no, I mean, we told you it was these other things, and then they can blame the other things. So Speech Unleashed said, okay, we already got that one. Good to see you, Speech Unleashed. Thank you for that. We have Peely Wally is here, says, I heard that Joe Biden is in line to be the main Ronald McDonald clown once he steps down as president. No job is too small for creepy Joe over there. We have Leafy Bug is here, says, there's a civil war in the White House between Biden and the Kamala camps. It ought to be easy for Kamala to steamroll him, but his people set her up to fail by giving her the mission impossible of fix the border. Yes. Then they leaked to the press about how the senior White House sources are alarmed at her performance. Plus, she has zero public appeal. She's terrible at politics. She has no shot in 24, but her and Biden are going to spend the next few years kneecapping each other. Now that Trump is looking like he's coming back in 2024, the Dems are going to need some kind of game-changing candidate. Here comes Michelle Obama. The Biden-Harris train wreck is a placeholder for the Obamas, who now own the party. What do you think? I like that, Leafy Bug. I like that. I can see that playing out exactly like you said. I actually don't think, though, that Michelle Obama is going to be the one. Maybe she is. I don't know. I think that she has a lot of likability problems also, and I'm not so sure that the country. Well, look, I don't know. Maybe the country is. I'm somebody who gets kind of tired of the back and forth. Right? We had Clinton, then we had Bush, then we had Clinton, wanting to run again. No, we had Bush, Clinton, Bush, then Clinton was running again. We got. We had an Obama in there. Are we going to have Trump running and then Trump running again? And then are we going to have another Obama running again? It's like 4 or 5 people that we just kick the presidency around between. And that's pretty frustrating. Michelle Obama, right? She would be a powerful candidate. I could see her coming in as like this, saving America, riding in on this sled of enthusiasm, this chariot of insanity that you would see from the media, just really excited. And then they could probably ride that up through November and see where that takes them. I like it. I think it's fun to speculate and kind of game that out. Thank you for that, Leafy Bug. Good comment. Let's see what else we've got. Miss Lucky says, Miss Lucky and Sergeant Bob are very pro Second Amendment. Cheers on that one, as am I. Love that. We have Sharon says, crime is down. From what I've heard, crime, especially in Democrat-controlled cities, is through the roof. And you're right about that. So he's talking about, I think, trends nationally and forgetting all of the Democrat-run cities like Chicago and San Francisco and LA. And Governor Newsom just came out and said, we got to talk about all these thefts and robberies that are taking place. So we'll see. We have Want to Know says, didn't Biden say get a double barrel shotgun and fire that in the backyard? Smartest and dumbest thing he ever said. The other dumb thing he said about guns was just shoot him in the leg. Oh yeah, just shoot him in the leg. Why can't you just shoot him in the leg? Because he just uses talking points. He's not really there. Speech Unleashed says the applause sounded like those fake audio studio applause that they have on the TV shows. Just goes to add to why people don't trust this administration. It's all smoke and mirrors. Agree with that. China Joe Biden says, Rob, can you come here a while so I can sniff you? That's from Creepy Joe. He's watching the show over here. Well, I mean, I like to think I have a nice, pleasant odor to myself. So, I might be okay with that. We have Ghost Gunner in the house says, fun fact, the original intent of the NFA was to get rid of the handguns, which is why short barrel rifles and shotguns are federally regulated. If I recall, SCOTUS ruled that pistols were constitutionally protected. Yep, in Heller versus DC. So they settled for SBRs and SBS. Hard to take what they don't know about. Go get some 80s and the tools and never worry about gun grabbers. Again, some 80, that's from Ghost Gunner. So Ghost Gunner knows what he's talking about over there. Thank you for that, Ghost Gunner. John Halgren is here, says he will go after the midterm debacle. Yeah, it's probably a good take on that because it's probably going to be a train wreck, right? It's probably going to be a red wave, just a slew of people voting Republican, and the party's going to recognize that they've got to make a hard shift. Otherwise, probably Trump's going to win back the White House. We'll see. Biden's here, says, your hair is nice. Can I have a sniff? Again, he's here. Biden, he's sniffing Joe is in the house. Speech Unleashed says, keep in mind, in order for a person to submit a question for Biden to answer at a town hall, they had to answer on the submission if they were vaccinated or not. Don't know why this is necessary to know to submit a question virtually. Is that real? Is that a real thing? You could only ask a question if you're vaccinated? Okay. I don't know if that's a joke, Speech Unleashed, which is part of the problem. I can't tell if you're joking or if that's real, which is hilarious and sad. John Halgren says, actually, they might use dementia to deflect and try to gain sympathy before the midterms. Yeah, they could easily pull, right? It's a sympathetic card. And then we'll probably see that at some point, like, they're going to want to blunt people like me. They're going to want to stop us from playing these clips over and over and saying that this is, mean or this is bullying. I'm waiting for that, right? I'm waiting for the policy changes to come down, that bullying people over their medical information is problematic. And so it's going to be bullying in the face of vaccines and stuff like that. Maybe there's bullying for the pro-vaxxers or the anti-vaxxers. And so if you're bullying people now about, medical condition, Joe Biden has, onset early dementia. And so now, if you're talking about these clips and you're being sort of pejorative about him and poking fun at him, that's offensive and that's against our terms of service, and therefore you have to go off our platform now. So you have to stop that in order to paper over what is clearly a decline. European Panda is here, says the EU loves Biden because all EU leaders can push the U.S. around. Thanks! Exclamation point. Hey, we love Biden over here in Europe. It's because we can do whatever we want with the guy. He has literally no idea where he is. Thanks, America. You're welcome there. You're welcome, European Panda. We're happy to do what we can to help the rest of the world here in our country. Federal Unemployment Tax Act says billionaires don't pay their fair share because the tax code is so complicated and they have lawyers and accountants for all the tax loopholes. Also, Robert Crypto won't stop taxes if the ledger is public and the IRS and feds can go after you. Private crypto, stop IRS tracking your purchases. Yes. So there is an ongoing debate in the crypto space, right? Your money and economics are how they keep you plugged into the system, right? Every single transaction goes through a bank. Everything gets reported. Your income's already reported to the government for most people before it ever even hits your bank account. They see it all. And so they really don't want people to go into a different system where all of these other things are being, managed by decentralized protocols. There is no IRS. They can see all of that. But if you're not somebody who's subject to the United States jurisdiction, if you pick up and you're a digital nomad and you go around the world and park in some other more friendly jurisdiction that is favorable to those laws, there's going to be a lot of capital flight. This is why China's freaking out about Bitcoin. They eliminate all the Bitcoiners out of there. They came out with their own digital yuan, and the U.S. is also working on its central bank digital currency. So all of these things are a response to the flight. People are bailing out of the economic system because they know it is rigged. They know that their dollar is being inflated beyond belief. They know that the government is sort of crumbling all around us, and they want an alternative system. And this is a 10 to 20 year transition, but they're going to stop. They're going to stop the bleeding. They're going to try to plug the holes pretty quickly, and we're starting to see that. Elizabeth Warren's talking about this, and many others. All right, so that's a little bit of a crypto convo, but it's a good one. We have Nurse Pandas here says, "Did you cut your finger? I sliced the top of it right off, and it's not good. I've cut my hands many times, not even a big deal. This one I was like, dang, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, all right, well, that sucks." CNN Pollster Panda says, "Kamala Harris is very interesting. Biden sniffing is actually more likable than Kamala's laughing." So those were great questions, all from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And before we move on, Speech Unleashed says, "I was not joking about the vaccine question. Here is the article." So it's a real thing. They're asking that. Before you can ask a question from the Biden, you've got to ask an actual question. Let's see if we can see what this is. Here it is. CNN is hosting a town hall. The audience is invitation only. So here's the form. Are you fully vaccinated? Yep, there it is. 2 weeks past your shot required. You have to answer that. So what if you put no? What if you put no? Is that vaccine discrimination there from the Biden White House? All right, from CNN. Okay, so all of those questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Thank you for that. Thank you for the super chat over here from James Rosano. Super chat. It says, "Thank you, Robert. Stay amazing, my friend. Much love back to you, James Rosano. Thank you for the support. I really do appreciate that." All right, and so we're going to move on into the next segment, my friends. Let's see what else is coming up. That's right. We've got a West Virginia transgender case. A federal judge just blocked a West Virginia ban on transgender student athletes. So there was a law out of West Virginia that came out, was signed into law by the governor, saying no transgender student athletes, right? You can't sort of cross the streams a little bit, to use a, what is that movie? Ghostbusters reference, right? We're not going to mix and mingle. West Virginia decided on that. Their legislature passed it. Governor Jim Justice signed it into law. Today, a federal judge said, nope, that law is unconstitutional. It violates our Constitution for a couple different reasons, of which we're going to talk about today. We'll jump off with a headline here from Washington Examiner. Says that a federal judge, you can see this article posted by Kayleen Deese today, July 22nd, says a federal judge blocked a law in West Virginia that banned transgender girls from participating in female teams. Okay, so we got to be clear what we're talking about. And I want to be very cautious on these segments, right? These segments can get very volatile. The language here can be troubling, and so I want to remember we're talking about kids in these situations, right? We're talking about student athletes. We're talking about people who are still trying to figure out the world, and they don't really know, what's going on. They want to play sports. They probably have parents who are pulling them all different directions. They're in the middle of this public debate about transgender rights that has become so politicized, where we have all these people on both sides just waging this war, and we're oftentimes I think forgetting about the kids who are in the middle of this whole thing. So when I go through these stories, I just want to remember that we have these conversations with some compassion. We're analyzing it from a legal perspective and trying to understand what's happening here. On this issue, I really don't have a strong dog in the fight either way. So let's go through it, and we'll jump back into it. It says, the judge ruled on Wednesday that the Mountain State cannot block transgender girls, so this would be boys who are transitioning into biological males transitioning into female, playing on female sports teams. Okay, so born biologically male, playing on female sports teams. So, and this is the more problematic transition, right? Many female sports teams and female athletes are concerned that you might have somebody who is sort of, born and raised with some of the male benefits in terms of physicality, right? Denser bones, bigger body structures, more muscle mass, things like that. And so if you pick a person like that and bring them over and put them on a female team, they may have some biological advantages. So there's been a response to that, saying we got to protect women's sports, we got to protect girls' sports, because we don't want the playing field to be uneven. So West Virginia made that decision. They signed that into law. They said this is a problem for us, and we're going to take some action. So it was initially banned they were not allowed to participate in public school sports consistent with their gender identity, right? So that's the problem. The ruling marks the third federal court decision in the past 30 days to block anti-transgender laws from going into effect. Judge said, at this point, I have been provided with scant evidence that this law addresses any problem at all, let alone an important problem. And so this is an important point I want to make, right? We're going to go through this case. This judge we're going to learn about him a little bit. But this has always been my perspective on this, at least right now, kind of early on into this issue unfolding. My question was always, how common is this, right? How commonplace is this? Are we seeing this frequently on a regular basis that we have to start responding already, right? Can these, in other words, can these things be dealt with locally? If we have a situation like this in a school, can the school work through that? Can the school just say, all right, look, let's bring everybody together. Hey, young gals here, we have this person who used to be was born biologically male. They're now female. What do you think about bringing them on the team? Can you have that conversation with these young people and maybe make something like this work? Or do we have to go to the courts? Do we have to bring in the federal government, the local government? We're in federal court right now. Do we need a national policy to solve all of this? Is this bursting at the seams? Are there, busloads of transgender children who don't get to play sports and they're having, a catastrophe somewhere? I don't know. I really don't know what the scope of this thing is, but the judge is sort of saying that, right? I've made this argument before historically, and the judge is saying that. He's basically saying, look, it sounds like you're just passing a law to fix a problem that hasn't even been identified, really. So we'll see. Now, I'm less interested in that more so than I'm more interested in the underlying framework of this legal problem that we have, this conversation that's taking place, because this is not something that's foreign to our constitutional system of law. We've had different classifications of people. So this is the problem here. We have people, and when we're analyzing their situation in context of the law, we have to apply different frameworks for that analysis. So back during the civil rights era, right, at some point, African Americans were treated differently. And we went through a system whereby we said, okay, we can't categorize people based on their race. We can't put all people into a bucket and call them African Americans and then treat them differently. That violates the Equal Protection Clause. It's not allowed. We passed, the civil rights laws, 13, 14, 15 amendments, and we changed the structure of how that was going to be interpreted. But we still have a framework where we have intermediate scrutiny, we have strict scrutiny, and we have rational basis analysis. These are the different frameworks that the courts use to analyze that. So right now we have a new bucket, okay? We're not talking about African Americans or minorities or sexual orientation or any of those, religious persecution or any of those things. We're talking about transgender rights as it relates to sports in high schools. So we have a new bucket, and we got to figure out how to analyze that. And so the court is going to give us some guidance on it. We're going to take a look at it. Before we see what's going on in the case, ACLU represented the young gal now. A federal district court judge just blocked the government from enforcing a cruel and unconstitutional law that would have prevented our client Becky from participating in school sports this year. The ACLU says Becky is an amazing kid who deserves the same opportunities as every girl her age. She has a lot of people in her corner in the battle, including many others. So many West Virginians as well. The judge who signed off on this is named Joseph Goodwin, U.S. District Court Judge, so he's in federal court, and you're going to see that what he did is he granted the plaintiff's motion for a preliminary injunction. What that means is the ACLU was filing a lawsuit on behalf of Becky. They were suing the West Virginia State Board of Education, and so they're asking for this preliminary injunction. They're saying, court, we want you to do something. Specifically, we want you to stop that law from coming into effect. It's going to ban Becky's ability to play on the sports team. It has to go. So the judge granted it. The judge said, yep, it's granted. The defendants here, the school, are enjoined from enforcing the law. She's going to be permitted to sign up and participate in school athletics in the same way as her girl classmates, right? Signed off on here by Judge Goodwin. Let's see who he is. He is appointed by Bill Clinton, been in office for a long time, since 1995. You can see born in 1942, 78 years old, over in West Virginia. He is somebody who, let's see, was an attorney. He was a city court judge until 73, then practiced law in West Virginia, nominated by Clinton for the U.S. District Court in Virginia, confirmed by the Senate, served as a chief judge for a bit. He rejected prosecutors' plea deals because he found that holding an open jury trial of an accused fentanyl dealer would be in the public interest. Okay, so that's interesting. Let's see. His son was also appointed. His daughter-in-law is the mayor of Charleston. So the family's all over the place in government. West Virginia, prior to election, she was a spokesman. Goodwin's nephew is a former U.S. senator as well. So the whole family's in government. We've got 2 people who are judges. We've got mayor of Charleston and a former U.S. senator. So that's a very active family there, isn't it? So we now know who Judge Goodwin is. Let's take a look at his opinion. As I mentioned, it's BPJ. So this is going to be Becky and the other initials of this individual, along with other people, filed in the Southern District of West Virginia. And this is the memorandum. So let's go through it. We're not going to read the whole thing. It's 20. Let me see how long this. 15 pages. But I just clipped out some of the good stuff. Let's see what's going on. So it starts. It gives us a memo. Here's the introduction. It says, a fear of the unknown and discomfort with the unfamiliar have motivated many harms in our country. Out of fear of those less than them, people who could work jobs, work certain schools, all of that stuff. Recognizing that classifying human beings in a way that harms them is antithetical to democracy. So this whole thing is going to be about the equal protection of the laws. The matter before me today is a motion to stop that law. Those states and standing in opposition are going to exclude people. At this point, I have been provided with scant evidence that this addresses any problem, let alone an important problem. When the government distinguishes between different groups of people, they must be supported by compelling reasons. Saying we have a bucket of Americans. If you're going to start taking people out of that bucket of Americans and organizing them differently, well, then you better have a compelling reason to do that. And so we're going to see that this judge doesn't think that there is a compelling reason to do that. And he's been joined by 2 other judges, 2 other defendants, other defendant governments have also lost on these issues. Having determined that the plaintiff, Becky here, would be successful, they're going to grant the injunction. So who is BPJ and Becky, and what's going on here? She's 11 years old. She's going into the 6th grade at a new school. Like many of her peers, she wants to play sports. She hopes to join other girls in cross country and track teams. Okay, so we're talking about running now. However, she was informed by the school that because of the new statute, she can't do it because she's a transgender girl. We've got different terms here. The judge looks like that they went through and researched terms like gender identity and gender dysphoria and took the term that came out of a case of Grimm versus Gloucester County. It says transgender is an umbrella term that describes a group of people who transcend conventional expectations of gender identity or expression. All right, so that's the definition. We have Becky. She writes in depth about her history. She revealed publicly private details to educate everybody. She was assigned the sex of male at birth, knew from a young age she is a girl. By the 3rd grade, she was living as a girl, but dressing as a boy at school. By then, she changed her name, commonly associated with other girls, to Becky. Also joined her elementary school's all-girl cheerleading team, practiced and competed with this team without incident. BPG was, okay, so that's my point on that, right? That's my point right there. This whole thing sounded like it was working itself out. Already joined the cheerleading team, already practiced and competed with the team. No incident at all. Because the school figured it out. They just figured it out. And our government, and in this case, it was the Republicans who came out and said, oh, we gotta stop this from happening. This is a culture war. We got to get out there and wage a war on this thing. So they did that. And now, because there's a law in place, the school has their hands tied. Becky goes to sign up for a class, and they can't. She can't do that anymore. She has to say, the school has no choice. There's a law now that addresses this. So we're not allowed to solve this on our own. We got to do what the government says, and this whole thing works its way up. Now we're in court because the government got involved. There are always unintended consequences. Even if we're talking about social, cultural battles, there are always unintended consequences. Which is why when the Republicans are going hog wild and going crazy, passing stuff all over the place, I'm saying, listen, folks, this is going to come back the other way, right? If the government is able to come in and start dictating how local schools start doing things, it's going to go the other way, right? How can you be against? Anyways, let's carry on because I've got a lot more to get through. BPG was diagnosed with gender dysphoria 2019. She began puberty delaying treatment to treat the condition. Now, look. That's a whole separate conversation, right? That's a whole separate conversation about, we're not talking about that here. But all right, so prevents endogenous puberty and therefore any physiological changes that are caused by the increase of testosterone circulation. So gender dysphoria 2019, 2020, she started that. So basically the argument is that she's going to be stopped from developing physiological advantages over other girl athletes. Right? How old was she? 2019. When was she born is the question. So she's 11 years old. So she probably started that at 9 or 10, maybe 10 years old, started the testosterone preventative treatment. At 9 or 10, are you already getting some of those benefits? I don't know. BPG and her mom filed a lawsuit suing West Virginia. State of West Virginia got involved, and now the government's going to sort this out. So in her complaint, they allege that the school deprived her of equal protection. She wants a declaratory judgment saying it violates Equal Protection Clause and Title IX. She wants the law not to go into place. She wants nominal damages and attorney's fees. All right, so I want to go through this again. This is the equal protection claim. And remember, under the equal protection claim, the idea is that one group of people are being treated differently than another group of people. We have laws that are supposed to protect everybody, but one single group is being treated improperly. That's what this judge is claiming, and he's going to give us some guidelines on how he's going to come to that conclusion. He says that the law says all persons in similarly situated situations should be treated alike. Okay? Plaintiff now says that the law discriminates against transgender girls and only transgender girls because cisgender boys and cisgender girls and transgender boys are all unaffected by the law's central tenets. Non-cisgender girls may not participate on a girls' sports team. State responded, said the law does not treat transgender girls differently than other groups. The law is premised on biological sex. It treats all biological males similarly, prohibiting them from participating on girls' sports teams. Right? So it's the state saying, no, it goes both ways. It's not just singling out biologically born or assigned, whatever language you want to use, males. It's not taking them and treating them differently from biologically assigned females who want to transition to male. It's equal across the board, is what the government is saying. Now, practically, what the plaintiff is saying, Becky is saying, is no, it's still problematic one direction because that's the only direction where you're going to have the biological advantage. So that's the difference. She's saying there really is no good reason to put us in a separate bucket. All right, moving on. It says, the equal protection claim is essentially the state is saying that it's not being violated. It's not a violation of equal protection. Biological males are defined differently under West Virginia Code. Let's see what else, if there's anything else good in here. The question then is what level of scrutiny applies? So remember we talked about this. When we have a law and the law impacts a bucket of people, the court has to say, well, we have to determine how to measure that law. How do we determine whether it's valid or not? Here, what they're going to do is they're going to use what's called intermediate scrutiny. It's sort of in the middle, right? At the top, we have what's called strict scrutiny. That means that if the government's going to uphold that law, it absolutely better be necessary. There better be nothing else you can do to achieve the government's goals. We have the lowest level, which is what's called rational basis review, which means that as long as the government has a rational basis for the law, it doesn't really matter what it does because it doesn't impact your constitutional rights. That's like a speeding law. Right? Put the speed limit, whatever you want, because driving is a privilege, not a right. In this case, they're using one in the middle. So it's not the strictest. It's not that the government has to really meet a high burden, and it's not the lowest. It's in the middle. They're going to go over to the Fourth Circuit, and they're going to apply intermediate scrutiny. They call this heightened scrutiny. And this is scrutiny to laws that classify people according to transgender status. So transgender status is going to get that middle level review. Because it's based in sex, the level of scrutiny is applicable to sex discrimination, and so that's where we're operating. So then, to survive that, so if we're going to apply that strict standard, sort of kind of in the middle there, what does the government have to show? It's exceedingly persuasive justification for the classification that was created by the law. So if the government is going to take the transgender students out of that bucket, the group bucket, and make their own bucket, according to the law, it says that it must be exceedingly persuasive justification for doing that. The classification must serve important government objectives, and that discrimination means that employed are substantially related to achievement of those objectives. So if the government's going to really hold to this law, they got to identify very, very important government objectives. Why are you doing this? They got to be important, not just because you want it to be that way. What are they? And then those objectives have to be related to the mechanism of the law. Is the law going to actually achieve those outcomes or not? So the court goes through this, and it just basically says, no, given that analysis, no, we balance all the equities, and here's what we've got. The public interests and the balance of the equities show that the preliminary injunction must be granted. In evaluating the balance of the equities, the courts balance the competing claims of injury, and they consider the effect on each party. It is always in the public interest to uphold constitutional rights, so they're going to default to that end. They say, this is the last paragraph here, it says, it is clearly in the public interest to uphold Becky's constitutional right not to be treated any differently than her similarly situated peers, because any harm to her personal rights is a harm to the share of American rights that we all hold collectively. Well, that's curious, isn't it? The right not to be discriminated against by the government belongs all of us in equal measure. It is that communal and shared ownership of freedom that makes up the American ideal. The American ideal is one that has never been yet and yet must be the land where every man is free. Let America be America again. Langston Hughes, he signed off on this. Granted, right? And so the response, of course, is, well, what about the rights of the other girls out there, right? What about women's sports? We've seen this before. We've seen this in different contexts. There was the male to female UFC fighter who almost killed a woman. I mean, it was not fair at all. We've seen many different stories throughout the internet of male to female transgender individuals crushing all of the other women in the sport, right? Winning competitions as power lifters, winning races as sprinters, and the list goes on and on. We've seen pictures of this where they're on a podium and you have somebody who looks like they're like 6'4" who just dunked on 5'3" women. And he's up there on the first place trophy. Hey, I won. Hey, it's great. And everybody's looking at this going, this doesn't seem right. What are we talking about here? Right? And that's sort of a different story. This is an 8-year-old girl, 9, 10-year-old girl. This is a local school. The government's getting involved. Again, so West Virginia, they went out and they said, hey, we're going to go out there and we're going to make sure that we're protecting our culture, which I support local communities doing that. So they went and passed this law. And what this law is ultimately, the ultimate consequence of that is any future law that West Virginia wants to pass that mirrors this is also going to be deemed unconstitutional unless this is reversed when it goes up on to a court of appeals or hits the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court might actually weigh in and tell us what level of scrutiny to apply. So we'll see where that goes. And it is time to hop into the chat and see what you have to say about this. So let's take a look over at, we got some super chats that came in, and let's see here. We've got several of these. Wow, we got a lot of them. Okay, so let me get through some of these and then we'll hop over to local. Wait, let me see what I've got open here. Let me get my bearing straight because I just opened up the other link to the question that we had previously in the previous segment. And that kind of screwed up my links, but that's my fault, not yours. All right, so here we go. Let's see what we've got from watchingthewatchers.locals.com and over here. All right, Super Iron Bob is in the house. Says, in the current environment, especially with civil rights, there is no opportunity for local or legislative solutions. All decision-making has been made into policy to be made by the courts. Wherever there is a decision by local communities and legislatures, a single litigant who can find a sympathetic judge gets to set policy for everyone. No one gets to negotiate on this anymore. We've been able to have these discussions, but the law and the courts won't allow it. Right. It's a good point. Right now, West Virginia has sort of, there's nothing they can do because a federal judge has just said, oh, this is the policy. I know you voted on it, but this is the policy because I'm a judge and this is the Constitution. So there's a lot of criticisms going, both ways on that. Let's see. Let's jump over to YouTube. We got some super chats coming in. We had Pro Player said just nothing there, just a 99 cent on that. Thank you for that. Ramalam gave me another $10 over there for a super chat. Thank you. Jay super chatted, said your new studio works for me. Thank you for that. So it's a work in progress. I've got a lot more work to do on all the back end. Today was super busy. I smashed my stinking thumb, and so I'm going to get to it on the weekend. No question about that. Thank you for that, Jay. Really appreciate the support. We also have Angela B. says, so excited to enter my son into the Westminster Dog Show. He identifies as a corgi and has dreamed for years of winning Best in Show, and that was over from Angela B. So thank you for that also, Angela B. Let's see. Let's go back on over to, we got some more coming in from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Three Girlies is here, says girls are having more than just a concern. This is great because Three Girlies, of course, has two girlies. She's the third, I think. It's actually messing with women's sports. There are teenage girls who are currently having issues with this. It's messing with their scholarship, girls' track records, and their potential to go farther in the sport. There are currently lawsuits going on from female athletes in regards to the issue. The only solution is to make a third category. Women fought really hard to have their own category so that they were not having to compete against biological males. Transgender, male to female or female to male, should have their own sports category to make it fair. Biological males, no matter how far out they are from transition, are still at an advantage over biological females. You cannot change one's DNA. It's not fair for biological males to compete against biological females. That's from Three Girlies. And as a former athlete myself, I will acknowledge that, right? And I've never transitioned, obviously, but I've definitely wrestled. When I was in high school, I was a wrestler and mixed martial artist, and I've definitely, competed against females, and it's an entirely different class. I wrestled one of the top rated females in the country, and I was a terrible wrestler early on, and I beat her. Right, I think she was ranked like 5 nationally. It's a different thing because we have different physiology, and I was just a high school guy at that time. So there are a lot of complexities here. Three Girlies. I think that's a great perspective, and I think that sports are a big part of a young person's upbringing, and if you start to sort of take that away from them, that's a big problem. There's some serious consequences from that, no question about that. Let's take another one over here. We've got Sharon Quidney says it's going to be interesting to see what happens when all these athletic winners are biological males. It's a good point that it probably isn't that prevalent right now, but it looks to me like a way for relatively non-athletic guys to get themselves into some primo scholarships to first-rate universities for girls' sports. And look, you don't want to be the person to come out and say that somebody might be exploiting this, might be using this to fill a void in themselves. But people do that, right? People do that pretty regularly. People join causes and they make decisions based on peer pressure, on what your parents want from you. And so there's a lot of questions about what this conversation itself is even doing to children. Right? If you have an 8-year-old and you say, hey, are you Johnny or are you Sally? You get to decide. What is that? Is that a fair thing to be asking of an 8-year-old? I don't have kids, but it doesn't feel like that. Anyways, let's see what else we've got. Peely Wally says the world of sport on the whole should have been strong and said no to transgender athletes competing against athletes that were born opposite sex to them. The fear of aggregating the woke community shouldn't come into it. Some would even go as far as to say that in many transgender cases is a form of mental illness. And I think it was for a time, right? It was in the DSM-5 as gender identity dysphoria or something like that. And then they removed it from the DSM-5, saying that it's no longer a form of mental, it's not a clinical issue, right? This is just how you are now. So again, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not trying to, be pejorative here. I understand these are people, these are human beings. And so we want to have some compassion when we're dealing with it. We're all trying to figure our lives out and nobody has it dialed in just perfectly. So we want to have a little bit of compassion on these things. John, even if you can agree with it, you can disagree with it. You can be, very aggressive in your disagreement because you want to protect the other side of the argument. I understand that totally. I'm talking about being compassionate to the 10-year-olds who are going through this because they are in something for sure. John Halgren is here, says just let her compete on the male team. Or did she not want to do that? She already had the benefit of male development when she crushes girls' records or wins competitions that a biological girl would have won. Who's looking out for that girl? The ones who never stand a chance competing against girls. It's a good point. Right? It's a good point. If your daughter is, the star athlete and then suddenly not because of something that might be perceived as an unfair advantage, you can see how that might be problematic in a very competitive environment. All right, we've got a few more. It's Ed says, Rob, sorry about your finger, buddy. Thanks, man. I know it's a pain. We already are seeing trans women and girls completely obliterate cisgender women in sports. It's just not fair. Trans women are breaking every record set by women in their respective leagues. Karsten Brasch, ranked 203 in the tennis league, beat both Williams sisters in tennis. This occurred while Serena was ranked number 1. The number 203 ranked male player beat the top female tennis player of a score 6-2. Yeah. By the way, men are currently participating on cheerleading teams with women. Based on your logic, that doesn't resolve the problem. If leagues are currently separated between male and female, it should remain as such. Otherwise, it negatively affects women. If the league are co-ed, then it's a fair game for everyone. That's from It's Ed. That's great. That's a great comment, It's Ed. That's a great comment, right? I mean, thank you for that. It's very good. I appreciate that. I think you're onto something, right? And you gave us some very good data and facts. 203. And it's a great comment. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And that's great. Okay, so let's go on over. Let's see. We had some other comments come in. We have Super Iron Bob gave us a super chat over here on YouTube. Says that cheerleading teams aren't gendered. Yeah. And I think did I just hit both of your comments simultaneously? No, that was It's Ed. Okay. Thank you for that, Super Iron Bob. Yeah, right. There are ways I think that you can sort of navigate through some of this. Philip Paggi said, where is the father? So that is a great question. And obviously, not there, right? Didn't make it into the article. We also have another one from Ravich is in the house and says, Robert, huge fan of your content, but my question is, why don't they just make their own group or league specifically for transgenders instead of forcing their way in through boys and girls teams? Yeah, it's a good question. And I think that is exactly what It's Ed was talking about, sort of asking that. Why would this be, I think the answer is because what you're sort of implying is separate but equal, right? It's that same thing that we went through a pre-civil rights era. They're saying, but I'm not my own category. I am actually a female. Biologically, that's inaccurate as far as I can tell, right? But that's how this is how this is being framed legally. Okay, so we also have another one here from Shade. Says, when's the last time a child could file a case? Is this a real thing? I could be misinterpreting this, but it seems that to read that it's only her filing. Am I understanding this correctly? Is this juvie court? No, I don't. Let me see if I can pull that back up. No, that was the federal district court out of West Virginia, which is where this court was. This was a judge. This is a federal district court. Yeah, I know. All right. Leafy Bug is here. Says, I'm not a cisgendered man. I'm a man. My kids are not cisgender girls and boys. They are girls and boys. People can call themselves whatever they want, but they don't get to redefine who I am or who my children are. Leafy Bug is in the house. We also have, I think we saw Ravich joined up over there. We have Angela B says, with transgenders being 50% male and 50% female, why are 0% of biological males losing opportunities to transgender females? Why are losing opportunities to transgender females? Yeah, okay, so I see what you're saying, right? So the equation is not sort of equitable, right? Only female athletes are losing out on opportunities because of the transition. Biological males are not losing opportunities because biological females transitioning over to male are not taking away their opportunities, right? The biologically gendered males, this is a difficult conversation to have. What the heck? My tongue's getting all tied up over here. Ugh. All right. The biological males are not going to lose opportunities to biologically born females transitioning to males because they still have that biological advantage. So you're not going to have somebody who comes across and becomes a superstar on the sports team, I think is the point, which is a very good point. Thank you for that, Angela B. A few more over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. John Halgren's in the house says, yes, the rights of women just died because this judge just strangled the Equal Protection Clause. Yeah, we've got Woke Lawyer says, I can't wait for all the January 6th defendants to plead transgender. That's from the Woke Lawyer Panda. Farmer's Daughter 4 is in the house says, I think we got the Hunter got the expression for real. Oh, that was from the Biden Town Hall earlier segment. Good to see you, Farmer's Daughter. Nadarb is here, says, you know what? I'm getting real sick of these federal judges sticking their nose where it doesn't belong. What happened to the 10th Amendment? Is that not a thing anymore? The powers not delegated to the U.S. by the Constitution are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. Yeah, so they sued in federal court on a federal claim. Federal courts got involved, and they're going to override what the people of West Virginia voted and signed into law. Don't you like that? We have that one Florida man is here, says, testosterone plays a part in human development in utero. So, yes, testosterone has already played a part in the prepubescent children, which is basically what I would speculate, right? Unless that biologically born, male, he's still even if his testosterone levels are depressed, he's still going to evolve with some genetic benefits that are accompanied with being a man in terms of sports performance, right? I'm not. What do they call him? A chauvinist. Chauvinist. Oh, wow, gosh. All right, Thunder7 says, Rob, it's not about fairness anymore. Biological men are identifying as female and winning and getting the grants and scholarships. Ban all biological males from women's sports, he says. Sexual offenders are free reign, to go around in there, Thunder7. Yeah, I see what you're going with that. The judge said you can't do that. We'll see if there's a response from the Court of Appeals. Ghost Gunner said, this is sad for the women who actually want to compete in a fair environment. When a professional U.S. women's soccer team loses to a high school varsity team, not hard to predict what's going to happen. The best thing an average male athlete can do, identify as a woman, go out there, crush the competition, and see what their response looks like, right? This could be a problem that solves itself. If there is a flood of transgender, transitioned athletes, and the female sports basically become transgender male sports, you might just see, women just want to bail out of sports, or, a real strong call for some changes there. It's Ed says, if a trans woman gets tested for controlled substance, will they test positive for testosterone? Yeah, I believe so, right? Because they're actually supplementing with testosterone. So they would certainly see that. Joe Biden's here. Joe Biden says, Rob, it's the thing, the thing. But I said that clearly. It would have taken Joe Biden, if he was speaking, about 25 minutes to say that. Gail08 says, can't we just write the laws better? XXs play on XX team, XYs play on XY team. If your birth chromosomes are other than XY or XX, too bad. No competitive sports divided by gender for you. Join the shooting team. I like that, right? Shooting or the chess club or, the debate team, one of those things. Not something that requires physiological differences. Robute is here, says, want to see the judge react when Francis somebody is identifying as trans and sending women into orbit with every punch. Oh yeah, so that was the UFC person. Want to see how they react, and would they win gold medals in mental gymnastics? That's over from Robute over there. Yeah, I think that was the UFC fighter who was just out there just crushing people. Okay, so those were great questions and comments over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Love them all, and thank you everybody for your super chats and your support over there on YouTube. Looking at you, Super Iron Bob, Philip Paggi, Ravitch is in the house, Angela B, Ramillion, and many others. I appreciate all of you, including Jay and Pro Player 2000. So thank you for all of that, and if you want to be a part of the community, it's at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All right, our last segment of the day, we're going to talk about the bad FBI agent. FBI agent Richard Trask was in court facing assault charges for smashing his wife's head into the side end table multiple times, leaving her bloody. This was the same FBI agent who signed off on the criminal complaint and the arrest warrant and the affidavit that was going in to round up all of the Governor Whitmer alleged plotters, the people who were allegedly scoping out her residence and doing surveillance and plotting to kidnap the governor of Governor Whitmer. So we're going to go through this story. This FBI agent had court. We're going to jump off with a headline over from Michigan Live, right? Most of the media sort of kind of glossed over this. So I want to take us back to Michigan, where the local news is still covering a lot of this. So my thumb accidentally clicked something because I sliced the top of it off, but we're back in business now. All right. So what I want to do is show you the headline, and then we'll go through what happened in court. So it says an FBI agent linked to the Whitmer kidnapping case choked his wife after a swingers party. All right. Now, before we get into this, remember yesterday we went through a couple different things on the show. We talked about the 2018 OIG report that went in and investigated the FBI and said that the FBI had massive problems. Yesterday, there was a new report that came out that said that there was a high-level senior official with the FBI who was actually going out with the media and sort of, glad-handing them, getting all sorts of meals and benefits, getting tickets to black tie gala events and all sorts of stuff. And the OIG, the independent body that went and investigated all of these allegations, came out and said specifically, the FBI has a cultural problem. This is a big stinking problem. And what are they going to do about it? Nothing. They just send a memo over to the FBI and expect them to deal with it. So then this story comes out this week telling us that there is, in fact, a major cultural problem with the FBI. And one of their agents, who's actually doing, in-field casework, choked his wife, smashed her head into the to an end table, and then went to a swingers party earlier that night. So he smashed his wife's head into the nightstand. Richard Trask, too, is charged with 1 felony count of assault, intent to do great bodily harm, less than murder, over in Kalamazoo County District Court. Charge stems from a domestic violent incident that was, according to the probable cause affidavit, was filed by the sheriff's office. Blood was actively running down the side of Trask's wife's head when police arrived at her home in Oshtemo Township back on July 18th. MLive and others do not identify the victims of domestic violence. This was a painting that was done by a AP artist, Jeremy Lemenu, says that in this courtroom drawing, we see the federal agent here. This is FBI agent Richard Trask, U.S. Magistrate Judge Sally Behrens over in the courtroom over here. In Grand Rapids, Trask testified that members of anti-government military group from several states discussed abducting Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Right, he's testifying there. Or Virginia Governor Ralph Northam during a June event. Barron said that 5 men's cases go to a grand jury. So he's testifying in court. They're all going to go to a grand jury and get indicted. This is going to determine whether to issue the indictments. And then guess what? They did. They got indicted, and we covered the entirety of that case. This was a signing from the criminal complaint that we covered here. You see, this is the United States of America versus Adam Fox, Barry Croft, Ty Garbin, Caleb Franks, Daniel Harris, and Brandon Caserta. I think we spent most of our time talking about Caserta here. This is the criminal complaint, June 2020. County of Kent and elsewhere. The U.S. Code violation is the conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Guess who signed off on this? October 6, 2020. The same guy who smashes his wife's head into a desk. The same guy who... What? I just totally lost my train of thought because I'm looking at this document here. Sally Behrens, U.S. Magistrate Judge, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Okay, so... This is the guy's name. This is Richard Trask, special agent, signed off on this document October 6, 2020. This was pre-election, right? So I'm trying to think through the timeline here. October 2020 was right before the election took place, right? And all of this investigation was taking place. This was all right in sync with the election, which I just didn't even realize. Didn't even realize that, right? We all talk about an October surprise and all this stuff. Very interesting. Okay, so let me get back to the article. This is from Michigan Live. So here's what happened. Earlier in the day, several drinks, according to the affidavit. They went in their bedroom at home. The wife was laying down when Trask got on top of her. He grabbed the sides of her head, according to the affidavit. He smashed her head into a nearby nightstand multiple times, according to the wife. She tried to grab Trask's beard to get him off, but he started to choke her. And so choking is a very big problem, right? A regular assault is, you hit somebody or you swing in their direction and you place them in apprehension of imminent offensive contact. When you actually place your hands around somebody's neck or you strangle them, that opens up a whole new area of law. And in Arizona, it takes it from a misdemeanor case, which is a lower level, county court, state level court, up into a superior court, which is where we process our felonies, just by simply putting your hands around somebody's neck, right? You can punch them in the head. You might be charged with a misdemeanor. But as soon as you, let's say, punch them in the head and then grab their neck, felony. Because it's a big deal. You can kill somebody that way. The neck is a very vulnerable spot. And so we want to make sure that the law is disincentivizing that type of activity. So this guy then, just as he's leaving a swingers party, slams his wife's head into the side of a desk multiple times. She tries to grab his beard. He starts to choke her. The woman told the police she doesn't think she lost consciousness, but she doesn't know, right? Because she was probably hammered drunk. The wife grabbed Trask's testicles, which ended the fight, according to the affidavit. She had multiple cuts on the right side of her head, severe bruising on her neck when the police arrived. She also had blood running out of her head and all over her chest, clothing, arms, and hands. Trask grabbed some clothing and fled the house in his wife's vehicle, according to the affidavit. Police came upon him, found him in a parking lot, read him his Miranda rights. He said he understood and he did not want to give a statement. Guess what he did? Oh yeah, he followed the 1-2-3 rule, which is available as an online course over at Locals, or watchingthewatchers.locals.com is a promo code for gumroad.com/Robert Gruler. However, this officer did not say anything. Nope, don't want to give a statement. Well, what do we know about that? It's the right move. if you follow the 1, 2, 3 rule. The FBI knows about the charges. FBI spokesman Mara Schneider said in a statement they cannot confirm if he's still actively working or not, of course, right? So she then, let's see, we already read this one. Here we are fully cooperating with the prosecutor's office on this matter, said Schneider. In accordance with the FBI policy, the incident is subject to internal review. We cannot comment further at this time. So the FBI, as is usually the case, they can't tell us anything about this, even though there are several defendants right now working their way through the federal courts based on this guy's affidavit. He wrote an affidavit saying that they were going to go kidnap the governor or Governor Northam. And they conducted an arrest and everything. This guy, turns out, may not be the most honest, integral person on the planet, or person full of integrity, because he smashes his wife's head into the desk, right? Not good. So let's see what else is here. Trask was granted personal recognizance bond. Do you see that right there, my friends? Personal recognizance bond. You know what that means? It means he's out of custody. Okay, so we have a former FBI agent who is now out of custody. He's allowed to return to his home address as part of bond conditions. He's not allowed to return to his home address or contact his wife. Okay, so this guy gets out of custody, can't go home, can't contact your wife, can't possess a gun. Those are all called release conditions. And so if you are somebody that hasn't been charged with a crime before, this is very common, right? Okay, well, you made a mistake. You did something bad. You go through the system. The court says, don't call your wife. Don't go home. Don't get a gun. But don't commit any other crimes. We're going to let you back out on your own, which is appropriate, which also would be appropriate for the Capitol Hill defendants, who also, many of whom never did anything violent at all. They were just in there. They were just trespassing. They were disorderly. They didn't smash somebody's head repeatedly into the desk and then flee, run off there, right? This is an FBI agent. In my humble opinion, I think that this invalidates a large swath of all of his testimony. Basically, most of the things that he said now, the credibility behind them is now lacking severely. His next court hearing is not yet scheduled. He has not hired an attorney, according to court records. I want to show you a quick picture of this guy. This is what he looks like. This came over from the Detroit News. She told police, any more information here? Several times banging his head into the nightstand. Here's what he looks like. FBI special agent, bad police officer, bad FBI agent, 39 from Kalamazoo, charged on Monday with assault. Is this guy a CrossFitter? Is this CrossFit over here? Oh my gosh, I pressed the wrong button. Is this CrossFit over here? Is this guy a CrossFitter? I don't know if it is or not. He might be. I don't have a problem with CrossFit, but it's it's another missing piece of the puzzle. So, all right, let's see what else is here. FBI, let's see. Track was released on a $10,000 personal recognizance bond right here. $10,000 personal bond following arraignment in 8th District Court, facing charges punishable by 10 years in prison. He's prohibited from possessing a firearm. Does anybody think that he is going to get 10 years in prison? 39, worked for the FBI since 2011, served as the public face in the Whitmer case. Testified in federal court about the investigation. Worked on cases involving espionage, terrorism, domestic extremism. FBI is not going to contact or make comments about anything. Why would they? All right, let's take a look at some questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. See if there's any questions that came in or any super chats that came in. Let's see what is over here. All right, coming in, we have FBI, this is Miss Lucky. Miss Lucky's here, says, when I, Sergeant Bob component, worked for Portland, the feds had a reputation of being able to screw up, i.e. make FUBAR any tactical incident. So that's interesting, Miss Lucky, and that's Sergeant Bob there. So Sergeant Bob says he used to work for Portland. Feds had a reputation of being able to screw up, make FUBAR any tactical incident. I see what he's saying. Okay. Okay, so I read that two ways, but I think I got it. So the first way that I read it, which I think is incorrect, is that that's also correct. That the feds just screw stuff up. They just come in here and FUBAR it up. But I think what you're saying is that when the feds came in, they actually FUBAR'd up any one of your specific tactical incidents. So it's not like, it's two things. They had a reputation for that, and then also practically when they came in and worked on your cases, they FUBAR'd it, which is just sounds right to me. Sounds very accurate. We have Hungen Munnin is here, says, with the recent events of other possible impropriety in the case against the kidnappers, can this help the defense in that case? I absolutely think it does, right? I think that anything now that this guy says is subject to some serious cross-examination. Of course, the government's going to try to keep all of that out of the case, but I think it really undermines his credibility. And it goes to his propensity for a lot of different things, right? Intent, motivation, all sorts of stuff. So I would be, if I were a defense attorney, which I am, working on this case, which I'm not, this would be a big deal. This would be a big game-changing momentum shifter. We have Hunter Biden's in here. He says, hey, cool, a swingers party. Do I have to bring someone? I don't know who posted that, but well done. Oh, it's too good. A swingers party. Do I have to bring someone? I don't know. I've never been to one. Don't intend to go to one, but I don't know. Is it be your own BYO something? Put your letter at the end of that. Bring your own. Put whatever you want. I don't know what you do with that. BYO V, BYO P, BYOA. I don't know what you want. Whatever you want to do. All right. We also have It's Ed says grabbed his testicles. Are you sure this wasn't a kink session that got out of hand? Remember, kids, safety words are important. Yes. Even if you're an FBI agent. Yeah, you got to have those safety words. Make sure you know them. Oh, my goodness. Okay, we have NY. The Dr. Renal MD is in the house from New York, says, at the time when the FBI action took place, Whitmer was hurting in popularity. People were talking about impeachment or the recall of Governor Whitmer. Her husband's boat was in the water when the whole state of Michigan was locked down. Interesting how the FBI came in to rescue Governor Whitmer to distract their entrapment scheme. Yeah, I didn't really realize the timing was that close to the election. I thought that a lot of that was taking place earlier. But it is surprising, right? It's certainly... And now that we know that a large portion of those people were in fact undercover, well, yeah, interesting stuff. We have Nadarb here says, didn't one of the lead officers get moved to D.C. and have some sort of connection to January 6th, at least according to Revolver News and Darren Beatty? You know, there are a lot of deep dives on this. I think BuzzFeed actually did a very, very in-depth piece that I have queued up to read. I have not read it yet because it is that long, but there's that one. Revolver News has been doing some great work on this, but I don't know the specifics of that one officer. Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that. We have some more coming on in here. Miss Lucky says, Sergeant Bob says, mainly initiated by them. We didn't let them run our game. Ooh, I love that. Good for you, Sergeant Bob. Pushing back against those feds, like in the movies. The feds roll in, you say, this is my case. Did you say that, Sergeant Bob? Not on my watch there. Get out of here, agents. Love it. Love it. All right, let's jump over to Super Chats. Let's see what's coming in over here. We have a Super Iron Bob said that the second locals link in the description is broken. My fault. What a doofus. All right, I'll fix that. That was for the slides, I think. So I'll get, or the form? No, the form. Okay, well, I'll figure it out. Thanks for flagging that for me, Super Iron Bob. We also have Ravitch is here, says, Rob, huge... Oh, no, I think we got that one. Let's see what else. I saw a couple of them come in. Curtis Bartle is here. Curtis Bartle said, Rob Aroni, we love you. I love you back, Curtis Bartle. Thank you for the support. I appreciate that. We had another one. Okay, I think that was it. I think we got caught up over there. So we'll go back over to the locals forums. We have Speech Unleashed is here. Says, don't FBI agents have to pass psych evaluations and anger management evaluations often? You know, I don't know. I would think so. I would have thought that would have been the case. Like they could have identified, you know, you would have think that this would have raised a red flag for them. They talk a lot about red flags. You think this might have been one of those, but what do I know? Thunder7 says, hey, Rob, was the agent on duty on January 6th posing as an Antifa thug? Do you think he might be able to make a plea deal to testify against the FBI agency to get a better deal with the assault charge? So that's a great question. What that would require would be the Justice Department wanting that to happen, right? So the only people who can really negotiate on a plea deal in this case would be the prosecutors, right? The prosecutors are charging the Governor Whitmer's alleged plotters with an alleged plot, and they're facing criminal charges and criminal penalties. So the prosecutor would have to come back in and make them an offer. Say, listen, if you give us some dirt on what's going on with the FBI, we'll dismiss your charges. We'll give you a smoke and plea deal. We'll keep you out of prison. We'll do a bunch of great stuff, but you got to work with us. So you'd have to find a U.S. attorney who wanted to go make a case out of, whistleblowing on the FBI. That's not going to happen. There's nobody over there who wants to do that. They're all in cahoots with one another, as far as I can tell. We have Nadarb says, here we go. And as the cherry on top, what if we told you that the director of the Detroit FBI field office, who oversaw the infiltration of Operation Michigan plot, was subsequently granted a highly coincidental promotion to the DC office, where he's now lead for all 1-6 cases? Over from Revolver News. Let's take a quick look at that. See that here. The title of this: Unindicted co-conspirators in the 1-6 case raise disturbing questions of federal foreknowledge. There it is. Well, I know. I'm not going to pay for that. Okay. So, all right. Well, full segment is over there on YouTube. Good stuff for that. Thank you for that. There. Let's see what else. That's Nadarb. Thanks, Nadarb. We've got a couple other questions before we wrap up for the day. Want to know says, isn't he innocent till proven guilty? Heard that somewhere. Should he have talked to the investigators? He is technically innocent until proven guilty. Yes, he is a defendant. And yes, I believe in the presumption of innocence and all of that stuff. But I just have a difficult time sort of mustering that energy when it's law enforcement officials that do the same crimes that they put other people in prison for. Right? Law enforcement, they're happy to round you up for assault. They're happy to lock you up and throw away the key. But if they do it, they get a significant benefit of the doubt. So as much as I appreciate the presumption of innocence, what we have seen in my experience is most law enforcement officials, they get way more than the presumption of innocence. They get the gift wrap innocence. Here you go. Here you go. Is this to your liking? Is this beautiful enough for you, sir? Here's your innocence delivered right to your doorstep. Enjoy it. And that's why I get so frustrated with these cases. We have another super chat that just came in. Says, yes, the guy was the head of the FBI in Michigan. He's now in charge of the Washington Bureau. He was on January 6th. So that's just outstanding. That's from Tracy Griffin. Thank you for that, Tracy. So we're going to continue to follow this story, certainly. His case will continue to work its way through the federal courts, and so we'll follow it along. We'll make sure that we have updates here, and those were all great questions from both locals and YouTube, and I appreciate all of you very much. Speaking of locals, if you want to join in with the community, well, I want to show you how to do that. Before we do, welcome to a couple new members. We had Fresh Eye signed up. Welcome, Fresh Eye. Signed up for the full year. Means you're going to be with us for a while. And I hope that we can see you tomorrow on our Watching the Watchers locals. I'm sorry, that's on Saturday, monthly meetup. Big shout out to a couple other of the yearlies. CB Riddell signed up. Super Iron Bob, Spisky H Rad, Blue Tiger Dog, The Engineer. And we have several others like Tim Flynn, Aircraft Mech, Zhao AI, Shelby Behringer, To Be a Girl, Wit, and Trump. All joined up over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. It's $5 a month or $50 annually. We do some fun stuff over there. We have something coming up this weekend on July 24th, which is Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be doing a Zoom meetup where we all just kind of get together, cameras on or cameras off if you want, but we have some fun talking to each other and sort of a Q&A session and, comments, questions, concerns, criticisms, anything that you want to say. It's kind of an open floor, and it's fun. We got to hear from a lot of very, very amazing people last time. And so come check that out. 1 hour Saturday night. If you want to come in and be part of that, it's going to be a lot of fun. Registration link is now available over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. It's posted up there, so you can sign up for that if you would like. And that, my friends, is it for me and for the show today. Got through a lot. I appreciate all the great questions, and I really appreciate all of the additional insight. You're all adding, a tremendous amount of value to the show, and I learn a ton every time we sit down and spend this time together. So thank you for that. Want to make sure you're a part of it tomorrow. We're going to be back here same time, same place at 4 p.m. Arizona time. 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And for that one Florida man, everybody else have a tremendous evening. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.